So today I want to show you a fun setup you can use to create beautiful textures by just holding chords and letting the notes play by themselves. I will try to make this video as beginner friendly as possible and explain everything step by step. So here I have a simple sound ready with a polymer instrument that I can play with my keyboard. Now we will be using the note grid in this case, since we will deal with processing the pitch signal. So before the polymer instrument, I will add the note grid. It will look like this. You can see for now the connections are already made. So the gates are going to the output for my keyboard in this case to the polymer instrument, also the pitch, also velocity, and so on and so forth. And we will start first by changing the actual notes we play. For this, we will use the sample and hold module. This will be under level. This module will take snapshots of a signal and will output these snapshots that we can then use for all sorts of things, in many cases to generate random pitch information. Now, by itself, there is really nothing random about a sample and hold because it will very much depend on the incoming signal. So for getting random results, we have to use a signal which is also random as much as random can really be, and that's noise. And this really will be under the noise menu. So now we will send the noise to the input of the sample and hold. Let me zoom in a bit. Right, and I also want to show you what's going on. So I will add a scope, an oscilloscope. Right, maybe make this a bit bigger. And now the sample and hold will go to the oscilloscope. Right, and now we need a way to tell the sample and hold when to take snapshots of this noise signal. For now, I will use the button module. This will be under logic, and it will go to the trigger input of the sample and hold. And now I will hold a note, and each time I trigger the sample and hold, it will sample, it will take a snapshot of this random noise signal and will output the resulting value, right? So I will hold the note because otherwise this will not work. And now I can trigger the button once, and you can see we have a value, and if I trigger it again, we have a different value. And again and again and again and so on and so forth, we will get more or less as much as random can be, random values from the sample and hold, sampling or taking snapshots of the noise signal. So now we can get rid of the scope and the button. And instead of the button, we will use an LFO, right? We will set it to pulse, so it will work better as a trigger or a gate later on, and this will trigger our sample and hold. Now, if I use this directly for pitch, the range will be too wide. So let's connect this. Let's put this here maybe a bit, right? Instead of the pitch coming from my keyboard, I can disconnect this, right? And instead we will use the sample and hold. And now, have a look. I will play just the note C on my keyboard, and each time we will get a different note because now the note information, the pitch information is coming from the sample and hold. Right? But you can hear that the pitch is going everywhere, up and down. Right? So I would like to control the range of this signal, and this we can do under the pitch menu. We have the pitch scaler, right? And this will come before the output. So after the sample and hold, it will go to this pitch scaler and then to the output. And then you can see here it says C3 and C4. Basically, this will be the range, 1 octave from C3 to C4. Of course, we can change this also. For now, it's 12 semitones. Let's leave it like this for now. And now you will see that we still get random notes, but they will always stay in this range of 1 octave. So the range is better now, but the notes are still very much random. So for this, we can use the quantizer, the pitch quantize. Again, after the scaler, it will go to the quantizer and then back to the output. So now the notes will only stay within the notes we selected. The quantizer will correct the incoming sample and hold signal and will force it into the notes we choose. So if, for example, I choose the notes C, E, and G, have a listen to what will play. Right, we get only the notes C, E, and G. But this is still not what I want. I would like to have the chords I choose to select the notes. And for this, the quantizer has a special pre-chord. If I go here to the help menu, you see here, this keyboard here, it says use note input. Pre-chord uses device's pitch signals to toggle note steps. So if now I activate this, right, the quantizer will change. And now the notes I hold on my keyboard will dictate the notes that will be selected on the quantizer. So again, if I go with C, E, and G, right? These will be the notes that will be selected. Again, the pitch is not coming from the keyboard, the pitch that goes to the polymer. The pitch that goes to the polymer comes from the sample and hold, right? Not from my keyboard, but my keyboard will dictate which notes will be selected on the quantizer. And now we need a way to gate the notes as well, so they will play even though I'm holding a chord. If you can see now, if I hold the chord, they will play once, right? But that's it, they will not be re-triggered because I'm still holding the chord. So we need a way to gate the different notes. And for this, again, we can use the LFO. So I'm going to disconnect the gate from my keyboard and use the LFO for this, right? So now I can hold a chord, and as long as I'm holding the chord, the notes will play, right? And will move according to the notes that I choose on the keyboard. And now let's make this a bit more interesting by randomly changing the rate of the LFO, so we get more of a texture sound rather than something rhythmic. For this, we will create a feedback loop between the sample and hold and the LFO. So for now, if I zoom in a bit, for now the LFO is already triggering the sample and hold, but if I want now to connect the sample and hold to modulate the LFO, let's really make this. You will see it will not allow me to make this connection. And this is because of how feedback works in the grid. So for this, we will need another module, and this is the long delay. The long delay module will allow us to create feedback loops in the grid. Right now, I don't want really to delay anything, so I'm going to set it to the minimum values, 0.02 milliseconds. And then I can connect the sample and hold first to the long delay and then back to the LFO. The long delay will allow me to create this feedback loop, right? And now I can add modulation to the LFO, right? So now the LFO is triggering the sample and hold, which is modulating the LFO, which is triggering the sample and hold, which is modulating the LFO, and so on and so forth in a modulation feedback loop, right? So now if I hold the chord, we should get some movement, right? So now it's less repetitive, less rhythmic, right? As you can hear. But now let's change the LFO a bit more. So first of all, I would like it to run more freely. So I'm going to set it to Hertz. And also, if you notice, whenever I play a note, the LFO will reset and we get this note. Right, this is not what I want. Again, I want the LFO to be a bit more random, a bit more free running, so I can disable here the retrigger on notes. Right, so now the LFO will not reset itself with each new note, and it will run more freely. Another thing we can do is we can use the sample and hold. Again, the sample and hold in this case will generate random values, so we can use it to randomly modulate the velocity. Here we have access also to the velocity signal. This is the nice thing here about the note grid, right? So I can disconnect it from my keyboard, right? So again, my keyboard will not have any effect almost on anything here other than the notes that will be played, right? And I can use the sample and hold to modulate the velocity. Now again, the sample and hold has a wide range, so sometimes notes will play really softly or will not play at all. Sometimes they will play loudly, so we get really a lot of variation. Maybe I can make the LFO run a bit quicker, right? I can just change here the hertz. I hope you can see this in this view. So now we have also random velocity. Okay, so what I have here, I have some delay, of course, with the Valhalla delay and some reverb with Valhalla Supermassive. I say some reverb, but you know it's a lot of reverb. And I have here 2 chords programmed here. I have 2 clips programmed, so it doesn't have to come from your keyboard, of course. You can also use clips and notes to generate these random signals, right? So if I play this, right, with some delay and reverb, it sounds really nice. Maybe even more attack. Now the filter can be a performative tool. Right? Something like this. Every few more voices, I have a kick, a bass, hi-hat, and an arp. Now, if you do want these notes to be quantized to the grid, basically, right, or to the timing, you want another random layer, but you want it to be quantized after all. After the note grid, you can add the quantize instrument here, and then maybe quantize it to 16th notes. Right, so you get an interesting texture. Right, I can then also sidechain it with a kick drum. Create even more movement. Right, and that's it. You can use any sound or synth, of course, that you like with this setup. I created a couple of sounds for my Patreons. If you're interested, links in the description. Thank you for watching. Cheers!